I had the pleasure of getting to sit down with two colleagues today to discuss their thoughts on Socrates' famous quote, "The unexamined life is not worth living." This is interview time, and I'm your host, John Green. Before reading them the quote, I first asked them, what things do you believe occur in someone's life for it to become worth living?
They set goals and they achieve them. I say it doesn't really matter what the goals are as long as you're setting goals that are kind of reasonably outside your limits and then working to achieve them.
Okay. So even if you don't achieve them, do you think you've committed your purpose in life?
Yeah, well, if you don't achieve them, it wasn't the right goal.
Okay.
It should be just barely hard enough for you to achieve. So something just outside your comfort zone, and then kind of the journey of achieving that is reward as well as the goal itself.
Okay.
I think a lot of things occur in somebody's life in order for our lives to be worth living. I think just our attitudes. So as soon as you open your eyes, if you're spiritual, the first thing you might say is, "Good morning, Jesus. Thank you for this day. Thank you for my health and all my blessings and my family." Whatever your blessings are, you may have a morning prayer and then you go about your day. And if you, certainly if you live where we live, in the developed world, we have the blessing of hot water, running water, lots of food in our fridge and electricity. We have vehicles to get to where we're going. So those things are worth, being thankful for. And we can say, I'm so happy that I live here in North America. And then we can take it a step further. So once we have, God, and we have family, and we have food, and we have shelter, it's sort of like Maslow's hierarchy, right? All the things that are necessary in life for living. But then it comes into the spiritual side of it and what is important to you and what you perceive yourself as important and what makes you a good person. And because you're a good person and because you offer kindness to other people, I believe that love and that kindness comes back to you tenfold. And then your life becomes even more enriched. For example, studying really hard, right? You get great grades, and don't you feel really good when you get a good grade because you're rewarded for your hard work? And then even more beautiful things come your way, like you get to apply for university and you're getting accepted. And those are really huge events in your life that make life exciting and worth living. And relationships. I mean, I could go on forever on that subject.
Okay. So when I was talking to Charlie, he was saying that he thought that basically for your life to be worth living, you need to set goals and reach them. So would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think setting goals and reaching them is a reward.
Okay. So what happens when you don't reach those goals?
Then you need to reevaluate your goals and make sure that you're setting goals that are realistic. And maybe even try to determine why you didn't achieve those goals. So, for example, if I wanted to be a doctor, yet I despise science and math, I would have to ask myself, why do I want to be a doctor?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to be very realistic when you're setting your goals.
Yeah, the goals have to be realistic as well.
Yeah. And I also think, though, that when goal setting, if you stay within what you have a passion for, you can only expand on those goals. Those goals get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like a bubble.
Yeah.
It just keeps growing.
Yeah. Okay. I then read the quote and asked, after hearing the quote, what are the first things you think of when I say living an examined life?
Reflecting on your own actions and mistakes and successes.
Okay, so that's exactly how he sees it as well.
The first thing I think of when I hear living an examined life means that probably I've set goals, I've journaled, I have to-do lists and things that I'm going to be doing in order to achieve what I've set out to do. and I'm examining. I look at my failures and the things that weren't working for me, and I try to think about, well, what can I do in order to change that? What do I need to do to get from A to B?
Oh, yes.
Right? How do I become a great mom? How do I have a successful massage therapy practice? How do I, make sure that my children are healthy and happy? That my husband is, and I have a wonderful marriage. How do we achieve all that? It doesn't just happen, right?
So do you think that part of having an examined life is looking back on mistakes that you've made?
I don't know that I look back so much on mistakes I've made, because I always say never look back. That's not the direction we're going. We're moving forward. I think that certainly when we make mistakes, we can have some pain in our life. And certainly that's when we grow. We never grow, we never self-reflect when everything's jolly and wonderful. We only grow and self-reflect when we're in pain.
Okay. How do you think one can live an examined life? The examined life means that one's nobility serves as the main reason for living.
I think it means they have to be capable of change. If you examine your own life, you kind of have to be willing to implement what you examine.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to change, I'd say.
Okay. So, I think part of it's an acceptance as well, where you realize maybe in the past you've made mistakes and you have to sort of overcome them and see how you can change and adapting to that. So for sure.
So an examined life to me means living with intention and living in the present moment. I don't want to think about the past. I don't want to live in the future. I want to live right now, and it's being completely present with what it is that I'm doing at this moment in time.
Yeah.
So even though I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you, another part of me is knowing that when I'm finished, right, I can't wait to take you downstairs so that you can show me how to do things on Apple TV. But I'm not thinking about that. I'm sitting here right now being present with you. That's an examined life.
Okay, yeah, exactly. I would definitely agree with you on that. What do you think the relationship between nobility and an examined life is?
I think nobility is more subjective. It might look different to different people. Because people they don't get the whole idea of your life. They only see a brief glimpse in most cases. So someone's opinion of whether you're noble can be different from their opinion of whether you lead an examined life.
So Socrates says nobility is the ability to live a self-examined life and not merely belonging to an elite category of people. To be noble is to be considerate of others and one's environment. The same applies to living a noble life, which requires no relenting on a course or conviction if it serves the right purpose.
I think they're one and the same, to be honest with you. I think if you live a noble life, you are with intention being kind and caring and loving to others and living a Christian life, really, one of service. And you don't just do that without examining your inner self. That's something you've grown into. That's a kindness. And the power of intention, really, is to be the best person you can possibly be.
Okay, yeah. So Socrates says that nobility is the ability to live a self-examined life and not merely belonging to an elite category of people. To be noble is to be considerate of others and one's environment and be ready to protect the same with all the available power and might. The same applies to living a noble life, which requires no relenting on a course or conviction if it serves the right purpose. Do you believe that one learns more from their mistakes from reflecting back on their life or from others telling them that they made mistakes?
I think you need both. Sometimes you might not realize that you made a mistake until someone points it out to you, but then it's your job to reflect on it. So sometimes you need someone to tell you that you made a mistake in order to fix it in the future.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. even like, I don't even know if this is sort of off track, but like examples, like when you say certain things, you might not even know that it's rude. Like if you're like, oh, I totally got gypped on that. But like if like you, it's just like a saying, like you wouldn't even know. But then someone's like, oh, that's actually like hurtful towards someone's culture, like and stuff like that. And then you're just like, holy, like there's a whole nother perspective on what
you gotta be willing to accept other people's ideas.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, we definitely learn by experiencing, because somebody told me that I did something wrong, yet I'm not aware of it. I don't learn a thing from it. If anything, I would find it condescending and I might get my back up. However, for me to have an experience and I know that it was not the right choice, I would learn from it.
What about like, let's say, so you didn't know you were doing something wrong, but someone told you did? Like, what if you were using words that you didn't know the whole meaning behind? So if I were to say, oh, I totally got gypped on that, and then someone says, oh, that's actually offensive. The word like gyp actually goes back to gypsies and whole other culture, and you actually could be, you had no idea that you were offending someone, but now that you know that you made a mistake just because someone else pointed it out, and you can learn from that. So
absolutely, I don't really look at that as a mistake. I look at that as that's like going to school. That's just like learning, right? We've used improper grammar, or we've referred to a certain race using slang words, and we just weren't aware of it. But I'm talking about, like, for example, committing adultery. We know it's wrong, but sometimes people do it anyway. And there can be a lot of hurt from it. And that hurt that everybody is experiencing could be such a strong life lesson that you know you'll never do it again. That's the kind of experiences I'm talking about. Things that challenge you right to your core.
Okay. Why do you think Socrates chose death over life?
You could say that maybe he wouldn't be living an examined life if he was condemned to silence or sentenced, because he would be inhibited from kind of his rather than lead an unexamined life, he chose death. But I guess you could look at it from kind of a cynical point of view, where if he dies, his quote lives on forever, because it was his last words. So so it could have been almost like putting emphasis on his final quote, and that's probably the most famous quote from him.
Yeah, no, for sure, because that's he basically proving his point with actually dying through doing this. All right, well, thank you for your time. This concludes our interview.
Nice. Get the answer.
Okay.
I think because he was being a martyr. He was dying for what he believed in. He believed so much in what he was preaching and teaching that he would be compromising his passion and his beliefs had he lived in exile. So he chose the death penalty.
Yeah, no, and his quote has really made an impact, and it's went on. He proved his point by following through with it too.
Yeah, and even to this day, because now you're studying it.
Exactly, it's a famous quote by him. So
yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. That concludes our interview. Thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us today. See you next week on Interview Time.